This is the Mysteries of History Revealed, Dinosaurs to Extraterrestrials, copyright Jeremy Auldaney, 2014, all rights reserved. This is page, this is number 5 on page 26. Reference Lucitia, 2001, Hiking Arizona's Geology, hike number 11, Colosseum, Ditrium, pages 116 to 119, and page 117 explains, quote, "The Pliocene in late Neogene Bitahoshi Formation lies at an elevation of about 6,300 feet. That's 1,920 meters, to 6,600 feet, 2,012 meters, at southeast of the Colorado Plateau. The deposits are from Bitahoshi Lake, also called Hopi Lake. These were lakes that were left after the flood. And the deposits extend southwards to the region at the north perimeter of the White Mountains of central east Arizona. Bitahoshi Lake is thought to have been a single large lake or several shallow ephemeral ones, temporary. Various fossil types are found, also bird trackways. The fact that these are lake deposits prove that they are post-flood, left over from the marine water as it left the land. This type of deposit is common for the post-flood. As the salty marine water receded, it left huge salty lakes, which lasted hundreds of years, being kept full by huge torrential post-flood rains, which secular archaeologists call the Pluvial period. Fossil leaves, fish, reptiles, freshwater shellfish, birds, bird tracks, and feathers are common in this type of limy shale. This deposit is similar to Orange County Miocene and the Eocene Green River Formation in Wyoming, and one in Lebanon. I have found all these to be misdated and are all part of the post-flood period and could all be considered Pleistocene. In Florida, the bones of Pleistocene camels, etc., are mixed with Miocene sharks, whales, and marine shellfish, which are supposed to be millions of years older. Now, in California, we find them separate, but in Florida, they're mixed. Right along the ocean, you will often find these whales and marine things from the Miocene. And one lady in my Sunday school class brought some camel bones that they were finding on the beach that were weathered by the ocean. The Shinle appears to be one continuous event with only a little erosion, not 192 million years separating it from the Bitahoshi. Even the Grand Canyon was formed only 1 million years ago during the Pleistocene, according to secular geologists. The Hopi Lake mentioned above was one that breached its dam and formed the Grand Canyon in weeks, not millions of years, as it cuts its way to the Gulf of Mexico sometime after the flood. Of course, this has nothing to do with the age of the strata in the canyon, which evolutionists date as about 2 billion years, a flat deposition from the Cambrian, supposedly 600 million years ago, to somewhere about the Permian. In other words, just before the strata goes from the earliest fossils up to the fossils that are just before the dinosaurs appeared, according to the evolution viewpoint. Evidence of flat strata with no major erosion indicates it dates to the flood about 5,000 years ago and deposited during the first stages of the year-long catastrophe. Rapid recent creation of the Grand Canyon itself. Of course, evolutionists always try to explain their way out of evidence against their theory. They claim it took a little water a long time to cut the canyon. However, the geologic evidence proves it was cut rapidly during the Pleistocene by a lot of water from a huge breached Pleistocene lake. Most likely when the sediment was soft and when the Ice Age glaciers were melting, and took weeks at most to cut the canyon. We must understand that when the strata was deposited is not the same as when the canyon was cut through the strata. Many secular geologists are coming to this conclusion. The deposit it made during the cutting of the canyon is found in the lower Colorado Trough in the Gulf of Mexico, which is called the Baus Formation, found in Arizona, California, and Nevada. Most of this deposit is in the Anza-Borrego Desert. It contains Miocene-Pliocene freshwater mollusks similar to Orange County and Los Angeles Miocene deposits, as I have explained. This is all post-flood, and evidence indicates that it is all Pleistocene. I have been finding evidence that the Miocene and Pliocene were actually deposited during the Pleistocene. With more research while writing this book, it appears that all of the Cenozoic was post-flood, starting at the KT boundary. There are exceptions to this, where the top of the flood boundary is found in other strata like the Triassic Cretaceous, which are explained as other impact events by some secular scientists. Evolutionists claim the Pleistocene dates from 2.5 million to 10,000 years ago, while the Pliocene is 5.3 million to 2.5 million, and the Miocene is 23 million to 5.35 million years ago. This means their dating is at least 20.5 million years incorrect about these strata according to my observations. However, creation scientists believe this was a flood event that occurred about 4 to 5,000 years ago. Some creation scientists are beginning to change their minds, and hopefully this book will enlighten them. The Mesozoic dinosaur-bearing strata is dated by carbon-14 at 39 to 22,000 years old, which is corrected to approximately 5,000 years. See the articles on dating dinosaurs and the video of lecture proving dinosaurs are not millions of years old, on YouTube video of a conference presentation on carbon dating dinosaur bone from many places at the American Geophysical Union, the AGU, and the Asia-Oceania Geosciences Society, AOGS, in Singapore. Grand Canyon post-flood breach dam deposit called the Baus Formation. When paleontologist Dr. Robert E. Reynolds of the San Bernardino County Museum led a field trip to the Baus Formation in Nevada, he took us to a small museum which had bones from a Pleistocene elephant on display from the Baus Formation found in the gravel. The biggest mystery, he told us, was geologists were puzzled by the fact that most of the alluvium from the Grand Canyon was missing. The Baus Formation was pitifully small and did not contain dinosaurs, proving that it's a post-flood formation. When the Grand Canyon was formed, it formed in the post-flood after animals had populated the earth, and those were large mammals such as found in the tar pits, elephants and bison and that type of thing, saber-toothed tigers. Another mystery is how the river cut through the Colorado Plateau, which is higher ground, which was being upthrust. This is also true in other places like the Santa Ana River, going from Riverside to Orange County in California, cutting through the Santa Ana Mountains. Since we know that some mountains rose after the flood from the geologic observation and evidence when the floodwater left the dry land from the creation viewpoint, it appears that the runoff cut down through the mountains and plateaus or blocks of rising land as they rose. This may have taken hundreds of years of runoff and included occasional flash floods from breached dams and geological glacial melting. I observed slickensides, rock cracking and sliding under pressure, producing slick polished surfaces in all forms of rock, which sometimes contain lava flows and show the mountain-forming orogeny upheavals were huge mega earthquakes and not slow movements of rising mountains over millions of years. Also, rocks bend like plastic before they harden into solid rock. This also happens when the solid rocks are moved slowly. Only rapid movement of solidified rock cracks them with slick surfaces. It is said that they are fault-polished rock, but I have seen them in all rocks, not just near faults. Slickensides do not form slowly. All over Riverside, I have observed cracks in granite that fill with lighter colored rock that filled in the cracks. This light colored rock is quartz, which hardens from a liquid in groundwater slower at lower temperatures than the surrounding granite. These intrusive quartz veins could not form slowly over millions of years, or they would not remain hot enough to flow into the cracks. It's also possible that these granite rocks are basement rocks and were only slightly metamorphosed as they were upthrust. But what did become liquid was the quartz that filled in the cracks, which had to have been rampant. I discovered this while examining granite found all over the Riverside and San Bernardino. The same granite found in the mountain barriers along the coast of California. Evolutionists claim the granite is Jurassic. Actually, all granite is basement rock created during Creation Week. Then it began to be upthrust during the flood when the Jurassic strata was deposited, and again after being eroded flat as the flood receded, rose again after the flood during another catastrophic event or events. Also, during my research into the writing of the paper on the asphalt seeps at La Brea, I discovered that the Miocene and Pleistocene sediment was upwarped along the Santa Monica Mountains as they rose. There are mountain barriers the length of California separating the high deserts from the coastal plain. Huge floods from the desert lakes into coastal California. I have observed masses of loose sand, rocks, boulders sorted all along the mountain barriers called the Santa Ynez Mountains, the Tehachapi Mountains, the San Gabriel Mountains, and the San Bernardino Mountains, the San Jacinto Mountains, and Santa Rosa Mountains. The rocks are sorted from large to small, determined by their distance and speed of the flowing water that deposited them. Many are huge boulders requiring huge amounts of rapidly moving water coming from the Mojave Desert that appears to have been a huge lake at the time. Most fossil animals were buried alive. Some fossils, like the flood-deposited Jurassic Berlin Archaeopteryx, show, which is the bird that had teeth and fingers on its hands. But that does not mean it's related to reptiles, because even hummingbirds have teeth. And there's the ostrich has claws on its hands, as well as the hoatzin. Show they were alive when they fell into the bentonite. Volcanic ash mixed with water altered sediment, mud, which turned into shale, similar to the post-flood California, Wyoming fossil fish beds, moving its wings, leaving movement smear lines in the feather impressions near the muscles in the shale. In the Gobi Desert, Cretaceous strata, a small velociraptor dinosaur was found entangled with a Protoceratops dinosaur, actively fighting when they were buried alive. The discovery of these dinosaur nests created the false myth that the velociraptor was an egg predator, thus the name egg stealer. Paleontologists have made a lot of gross errors which could fill a book, but there is one thing that the evolutionists will swear to and can never be falsified. Evolution is a fact of science. They discovered later that the eggs were velociraptor, so it was the Protoceratops that was stealing the eggs. Velociraptor was framed. Scientists often jump to conclusions, mainly preconceived conclusions. When facts conflict with the theory, they support the theory. Like, for example, in Germany, there is a coal quarry where some dinosaurs, they say, fell into this, probably being chased by a T-Rex. That's all fiction. They never found a T-Rex there. They just found these duckbills. And then there was also another story at the Paluxy River where they said that the large, it was an Acrocanthosaurus was chasing a sauropod dinosaur, but when they excavated, they said it was chasing it, but if you see the end of it after they finished the excavation, the sauropod went one way and the theropod went the other way. These are made-up fictional stories. Polygamy, parental care in birds linked to dinosaur ancestors. Website ScienceDaily.com, released 2008. Science Daily, December 19th, 2008. Sure, they're polygamous, but male emus and several other ground-dwelling birds also are devoted dads, serving as sole incubators. And another reference, Science News, December 19th, 2008, gives us a fascinating look into the past in their article from a paper written by paleontologist Gregory M. Erickson, above, of the Florida State University, and other researchers, writes, quote, "In those cases where adult dinosaurs have been found on top of nests, we find that the volume of mass of the egg clutch, total number of eggs in the nest, is very large relative to the size of the nesting animals." Notice the evolutionists are, end quote. Notice the evolutionists are interested in their theory of polygamy and ignore the more significant fact that these dinosaurs were buried alive sitting on the nest. This fact indicates that almost all dinosaurs worldwide were buried alive. These so-called nesting sites are made up of common cross-bedded red sandstone in formations called Navajo, Moenkopi, Coconino, etc., each of which covers thousands of square miles in areas that are found spotted around the world. This same cross-bedded red sandstone commonly contains fossilized tracks dated from the Permian to the Cretaceous and are falsely claimed to be wind-blown sand deposits, like in Disney's cartoons of dinosaurs. But they have ripples created by flowing water, and they are cemented by silicon, which could never happen in a desert. Several ichthyosaur marine reptiles have been found fossilized in the act of giving birth. Dave Smith, geologist working in art and design and paleontology for the University of California, Berkeley Museum of Paleontology, writes in November 7, 2005. Rare fossils have been found that show ichthyosaurs actually giving birth to live, well-developed young. Ichthyosaurs never had to leave the water to lay eggs. In fact, some of their streamlined fish-like bodies, it seems almost certain that the ichthyosaurs could not leave the water, yet they still breathed air and lacked gills. They were like modern whales. We will continue this recording in the next one, number 6. Thank you.